It's me again over on Facebook and Instagram, and we are on tonight to talk more family history and genealogy, specifically Scottish genealogy. So as usual, we're going to hold on a couple of moments and see who's going to join us this evening. So, and we're on time and we're set up. So there we go. So we've got one person there on Facebook just now. We've got some folks coming in on Instagram. Hi guys. We're just going to hold off. So the chat tonight is going to be Scottish ancestry. So if you've got any Scottish ancestry, please take part, and we'll see how we get on. So if you've got any questions about your own research, now's the time to let me know. So again, we'll just hang fire. You can watch the lovely fireplace behind me here on Instagram and here on Facebook. And I've gone for my own heritage tonight, a little bit of a sort of African theme. So there we go. So let's see. I'm just going to go and watch myself. There we go. So guys, we've got more people joining in. Let's just see. So I just want to see who's coming into the chat, because I can't see anything on Facebook there. There we go. So Helmut kindly shared it already. Hi Taylor, thanks for joining in. I'm watching. And let's just see who else is coming in. Hi Taylor, you're over here on Facebook as well. You're watching it both places. And it seems that I'm fighting with Michael Bublé. It's currently live as well. So there we go. Needs must. So we've got Courtney. Hi Courtney, nice to see you here. And Helmut, and we've got some other folks. If you're interested in your Scottish history, please put a wee like, give us a wee bit of love. We've got Paul Rasmussen just joined in on Instagram. Hi Paul, hope you are doing fine. We've got Ian. We've got Dee Fetterly listening in from Canada as well. So we've got quite a few Canadians in. We've got Bonnie as well. Hi Bonnie. And Robert, again, quite a few Canadians coming in tonight. Hi folks, the new folks there. Mum6 just joined in. And Nina, hello, thank you and welcome into my living room. So, let me just get the ball rolling. Yeah, lots of Canucks. I don't know what a Canuck is. What's a Canuck? Is that just a Canadian? Hi Donna, we've got Donna just joining in. Like I said, I'm just going to wait. And Gary, more Canadians. Hi Gary. So.
Well, they're all basically Scottish, aren't they?
Nah, yeah, you're all basically Scottish. I hope you guys find this session interesting. So there we go. Okay, so as you all know, I do ancestry and genealogy for Scotland. I'm doing some work just now for a lady over in Canada, and well, New York, and a lady over in California. We did some other work for a lady in Canada already. So it's been probably my favorite thing ever is to research all your families. So if you are also looking for some help, you know where I am. Okay, so I'm just quickly checking. Donna's saying, cooking again, but I'm here. One day I will find that Scottish ancestor that came to America. Well, that's what I do. I try and find it. I try and find that person. And, you know, it can't have been that long ago. There must be some records, at least 200-300 years ago, where they went over. So anyway, I don't want to go into anyone's specific personal information. So I thought tonight I would talk about my own, because I fell in love with doing this. Obviously I'm a tour guide, so I have a good knowledge about Scotland and the history, and I started to do my own ancestry as a result. So it's been great fun, gone all the way back, one person back to the 1500s, just over here, that I can pretty much vouch for using the records. Now I've just seen these put in here on Facebook. She's got Boyd, Wallace, Howard and Fraser. So you've got some, well, at least 3 good Scottish names in there. And we've got Cavi. Hi Cavi, just joined as well. Nice to see you. And Hugh and Michael. Michael's on helmet.
Michael Sinclair.
Yeah.
Hi Michael.
Alice says hi Michael. And we've got some folks coming in, some Highland dancing. I was a wee Highland dancer myself. And Jones cares. So we've got some good viewership now. So anyway, I started doing my own research, and the thing that people kind of get, or a lot of people get wrong, is that they use passed down information and Ancestry to do their research, which is only as good as somebody else's research. So I always say it's better to do it yourself or have somebody else do it for you who you can vouch for. Sometimes people don't always understand the geography of Scotland, and you can get lots of things wrong. So I've been doing my own research, as I mentioned, and the majority on my mother's side are all Scottish. So that's been fairly easy to work out. And I've managed to go really far back. So let's start, shall we? So I was looking at my family tree earlier on today, because I've been doing a lot of ancestry work today. So I thought this would be a really great topic to talk about. I'll just quickly, evening Hugh, and Patricia says, I want to do ancestry, where do I start? So Patricia, that's a really good question actually, because when I do my own ancestry, the best thing to do is to work from yourself back. Always work back the way, never try to work forward. A lot of people I know say, oh well, I know I'm related to so and so, but they have no evidence or no link other than what they've heard down the family. So the best thing to do is to work back the way. So you start off with yourself. You know what day you were born, if you were married, your children. So you always start with yourself, and then you work back the way. So then you go, okay, do I have any siblings? Okay, I'll add my siblings, and then I add my parents. What my parents' birth date, their marriage date, did they remarry, did they divorce, all that kind of information. Did they have any further children? Then you go back to the grandparents and you do the same thing. When were they born? When were they married? Did they get divorced? Did they have any further children? When did they die? As well. And then you go back and you say, and from that, because those records from now will give you clues to the records further back, which is a really important part. Well, everything you need, clues wise. So the site that you would use, Patricia, is a website called Scotland's People, and it is the official records office for Scotland. So that's where you'll go find all the births, deaths, marriages, census records, valuation records, sometimes poor and migration records as well. Sometimes you'll find that in there as well. And crucially, because a lot of people do ask me this, and Bonnie, I hope you don't mind you ask me this, and I think it's quite relevant. If it's not on the internet, if it's not on that website, it will not be on the site. So you can't go somewhere, and each parish, as we call them, parishes, they will not hold the information. All that information is in Edinburgh, and it has been archived, all of it, onto the internet. Now the problem with that is some of the information has been maybe potentially archived incorrectly, which makes your life a little bit difficult, but the likelihood and the ability to find that information is really difficult for them anyway. It probably would never ever be found, but most of the time they're pretty good. So that's a good way that you find it. It's, Patricia, sorry, you just asked there, I'm in the US, how do I find the documents that are in Scotland? You just, like I said, you just go to the website. It's a really easy website. I'm just going to get it up now so I can give you the proper URL. Okay, so it's nice and easy, guys. It's Scotland's People, all one word, in Scotland. So scotlandspeople.gov.uk, and that will take you to the official record site, and then you can search by surnames, first names, things like that. But you really, when you're going to do any research, you need to be able to research with something. You can't just research with a random name. This is why I was saying it's really important if you want to validate any of your past. Now, just to make it clear, you're not going to always, you know, have the chance to validate everything, but it is still important that you do that work, that initial work, because it will give you the best chance to find that person. Before the 1850s, things get a little bit more murky, so it becomes more difficult to find. The writing is really sometimes really illegible. Sometimes, well, actually most of the time, they don't always put all the names down. So if it's a baptism, they only put the parents' first names on it. They don't always put on the parents' marriage dates. When you go to the marriages, it just usually says, you know, Sheila Campbell married John Fraser, of whatever, and sometimes it'll put his profession, so it'll say he is a carpenter or a cooper or a shoemaker or something like that, or a lawyer, or, you know, whatever. So you might find a job description, but you don't always have his parents' information, and that's where things become quite difficult, because if you're looking at, say, a name like John MacDonald in, I don't know, Inverness, it's going to be quite difficult if you're looking over a period of a couple of years that you're trying to define. There will most likely be quite a number of people with that shared name. So you try to find other little bits of information there that will hopefully help you out with your research. Let me just go back. I'm just going to quickly look. Hi, Shelley. We've got Nicolette. Hello, Nicolette and Dragonfly. Nice to see you guys on here. Mary Cooper. Hello, Mary. And Zala. I hope I get that right. So Dee's just asked, is there a fee to access that site? And absolutely there is a fee. You basically pay for credits. So you get so many credits for whatever, and it costs you credits to open each document that you're looking at. Now, so it can get quite pricey, and I think last week Morag mentioned that she found it quite expensive. So one of my tips is, if you are in that situation, it's probably easier to hire somebody to go through a lot of that for you. It might seem like a larger cost up front, but actually it probably is going to save you quite a lot of money, or wasting money, to get the answers a lot quicker, or as much information much quicker. And secondly, the other good thing about it is that it also allows you to get a sense of a place. So this is what I was mentioning before. You might go to Scotland's People and you're looking for John Williamson. You think he was in Glasgow, but there's none in Glasgow, but there's one in, say, Govan, and then there's one in, I don't know, Kirkpatrick or something like that. So it gets quite complicated as to which one is more likely, and that is why having a professional do it for you is probably going to be slightly better, because you will essentially be paying for every single record that you open, whereas somebody like myself, part of our fee is that's costed in. So that's quite important. The other way to do it is, once the lockdown and everything is over, is to make a trip to Scotland and to go to, like I said before, going to Edinburgh, where you can see the records. It's exactly like sitting in your home computer. You go in, it's like a sort of library setup. You pay, if my memory's right, it's £15 for a day for your seat, for your table and your computer space, and you can access the archives that way. The only difference between going there and doing it at home is that once you've paid that fee and you're in Edinburgh, you can actually access those things without paying for a credit just to view. You would only then have to pay for credits for things that you are then wanting to print off or save, actually, because I did quite a lot for somebody recently, and I saved a lot of the information that I was able to find, and that cost so many credits every single time you do that. So that's why it's quite important. Shelley, got you there. Donna, easiest way to tell the difference from Scottish and Irish surnames? The easiest way is just to know it, I suppose. Yeah, I think it's just something that you start to know. Scotland and Ireland, even Scotland and England. I saw somebody with the name Bell just came in, actually. That's quite relevant for me because I've just been talking to a Bell. Hold on, let's see. Where did I see you? Hi, Patty. I'm just talking about you. And Susie. We had a Bell here somewhere. If you're a Bell, please please comment again. I seem to have lost it. I did see your comment though. I'll give you an example. So the reason why I mention the name Bell is because there's a real identity to the name Bell in Scotland. And somebody asked me on one of the groups that I'm part of, Catriona, is there a Bell clan? Now, there's no straightforward answer to that, because Bell is one of those names that is not defined in one place. So the name Bell, there's records of it as way back into the 14th century in Dunkeld, okay? But that's a minister, or a minister, like a canon, I think it was, in the cathedral there. And then you have Bells down in the border region of Scotland who were famous border reivers. And by the way, guys, after doing all the border reiver stuff, I can't believe I've never spoken about the border reivers before, but I will in a separate chat. But they were border reivers. But then you also have the Bell clan in the Highland context being linked to the Clan Macmillan. And that's something that I've always known because, or not always known, but I've known for a very long time, because our local estate here is the Macmillan, where the chief of the Clan Macmillan stays. And they have a special exhibition, and they include some of their sets, which is obviously the blues and the bells. So if you know any blues and bells, they go with the Clan Macmillan. And the reason for that is when they were translating a name from the Gaelic into English, they mistranslated it into Bell, and apparently it also has some connection to the McGills as well, because just the way that they had mistranslated the names. So if you know any Bells, they would have to probably do their ancestry properly to know which Bell that they are from. So that's just a random one I'll just throw in there. But the reason why I brought it up actually initially was because some Bells are English as well. So when you're looking at different surnames across Scotland, there are some which are specifically Scottish. You can say they're Scottish. MacDonald, Macmillan, you know, let's think, MacLeod. There's so many, okay? Stuart. But if you go down south, there are some names which are both in England and in Scotland, like Bell, like Ramsey, even my name. Bennett, that's another one of my names, which is my Scottish Bennett, but there are some English Bennets as well. So there are a lot of names which, unless you know and you do the ancestry yourself, you'll be able to kind of trace your ancestors back to a certain point. Now, I was just doing, oh my goodness, what was I doing? I was just doing some ancestry for myself, and I have just found another Englishman. In fact, I remember now. In 1819, my ancestor, a chap called William Gourley, married a lady called Margaret Stewart, and they were married at the Canongate in Edinburgh. And Margaret was the daughter, because the Edinburgh records are wonderful, by the way, absolutely wonderful, most of them. And I could tell he was living at the bottom of the Canongate, kind of near where Holyrood is now, and she was living at 58 High Street, which is the Royal Mile, and her father was a chap called Robert Stewart, who was the he was then deceased by this time. She was married, but he was a chairman. It doesn't say what of, but he was a chairman. And when I was trying to find William Gourley, in fact, was English. And it looks like William Gourley came from near Newcastle area. So there you go. So I was telling my mum, like, not all of us, even the Gourleys, because the Gourleys is a good Scottish name as well, which is also English, even though our Gourleys are Gourlay. That's the Scottish spelling of Gourlay. It looks like our Gourleys were English. However, until I can go farther back enough, they might have come from Scotland as well. So another example of that would be some of my Ramseys, they're from Ayrshire, a place in Ayrshire called Dalry, and they kind of moved between Dalry and West Kilbride and Ardrossan. But at one point, my ancestor, who was a engineer, he was a millwright for the mills. So he was setting up mills over in Ireland, where some of his children were born, including one of my ancestors. So if you go back, my ancestor was born in Ireland, but his parents were Scottish and they moved back to Scotland. So if you understand the geography, I'm kind of just giving you some to show you how some things sometimes don't work out as planned. So you might think, oh, my ancestor was born in Glasgow, and I had a lady today whose ancestor was born in, or sorry, her late husband was born in Dumbarton, but his lineage being in Dumbarton doesn't necessarily mean that his people were from that area for more than maybe 2 generations. So it's a fascinating subject, and it's really, as long as you do what I said and you start with yourself and put all the information that you know, everything that you know down, and then start working back. Again, exactly how you've done yourself, you have to be as thorough as you possibly can with the information, because you'll see things that they're going to start coming in there, like, oh, I know that they were from Dalry, so the fact that this guy, you know, on Ancestry, they put this person in Edinburgh, when in fact there was somebody with the same name in Dalry, and that's possibly going to lead you down the right path, or at least help you eliminate other information that's there. I do a lot of elimination in my work, because how else can you be sure? How else can you be sure? So anyway, let me just see. I'm just going to check some of the comments here. Patricia, please can you give me the name of that website again? Yes, absolutely. I'll say it again. So it's Scotland's people.gov, which is spelled gov.uk. Okay, so that again, so the website where you find all the Scottish records from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be in Scotland to access it. It's Scotland's people.gov.uk. Okay, so I hope that helped you out.
Sent her the link.
Oh, good. And hello, New York. Hello. Hello, Patrick. A nice Irish name. That's how you can tell the Irish. So let's just see, Donna.
They're all cops.
They're all cops. That's terrible. My grandmother Mitchell has been traced big Y to Irish Eli O'Carroll dynasty. I'm thinking she is an Ulster Scot, maybe. Well, Mitchell is a common Scottish surname, so it's likely. This is why I'm going to go into a special section, a special live chat I will do on the Border Reivers, guys, because I think you will absolutely love that. You know, you think that the Highland clans were tough and difficult to manage. The Border Reivers were like way up there. So, and most of them, they went to Ulster. So if they were a lowland border clan or family, a lot of them were moved to Ulster during the plantations. So that would have been in the 17th century. So let's just see. Hold on, I'm just going to try and get some of these other questions in. There's so many, sorry. Yes, Clan Arnold, that's another one. So they're another clan down there. Oh, okay. So Donna, I think what Donna was actually asking me before is there a difference between Mac, M-A-C, and Mick, M-C? And no, not really. And the reason for that is I spoke to a chap up in, he's actually a fiddle player, a fiddler, one of Scotland's top fiddlers. It just sounds so wrong. He plays, or he's from Glenfinnan, and his folk are from Glenfinnan, and he was telling me that the difference between MAC and MC, because he's a Gaelic speaker, you see, and for the Outlander folk, he actually played for Outlander. But anyway, he told me that the difference between MAC and MC is just spending money on gravestones, okay? So if you're a McDonald and you're paying by the letter, because that's what you did, you would pay by the letter, you would put MAC if you were willing to, and MC if you're not. And that then is kind of about the same time as a lot of Irish migration, and a lot of, we were talking about this before in our Gaelic chat as well. This is during a time of lots of Gaelic or Irish persecution, and it was, like I said before, it was a dirty word to be Irish. So, you know, they started to make their own clubs and teams. So MAC is now Scottish and MC is now Irish, but really it's not. It's just perpetuated sectarianism. Hi Joyce, love you. Nice to see you again. And Heather joined. Heather, hopefully we'll get some more on Wilsons and Arnott's moving forward. We've got Donna, you're welcome. Oh, you're asking about the names that don't have a Mick or a Mac in it, like Arnold. Well, that's kind of what I was saying before. You don't really know unless you know. Which is like, it's honestly, it's not a cop-out, guys. So if you are, like I said, a Bell or an Arnold or whatever, you're not going to know unless you do your ancestry to where your people come from. So that's kind of what I was getting at before. With me being a Gourlay, or, well, my granny was a Gourlay, or before she married, so that's her maiden name. So if you go back, it looks like the Gourlay actually comes from England. I mean, I haven't gone farther enough back because I've not gone and looked at the English records for that just yet, but it goes all the way back to England that I can so far find. So that means that no matter what you think a name is, you have to do your research to say exactly what it is. So then you can know, okay, that's going to be Irish, that's a Scottish name, that's a whatever. Because some names, we are an island nation. We have been, you know, going about our business across the borders, across the sea. So it makes all the sense that people have moved. And then obviously we have a Scandinavian influence as well. So my funny enough, guys, I did my DNA, and I am 42% Scottish and Irish. No, wait a minute. 48% Scottish and Irish, and 52% English and very Northern European. So that's like in, like probably from the Normans. And because my great-great-grandfather was from Italy, he was from Lake Como in Italy, but he was very fair, apparently. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, and he was very northern Italy, so very kind of Germanic, I suppose. So that's where my ancestry comes from. I didn't get 1% for Scandinavia, not even 1 iota Scandinavian. And my surname, my dad, it's my maiden name. We're not married. My surname is Stevenson, which is obviously has Scandinavian roots, because any name with a son, Anderson, Stevenson, it has some sort of Scandinavian roots, but I have got no Scandinavian blood. I'm pretty much a Celt. Let's see. Next question. Those darn English and Scot and Irish all married together muck the research up, making it harder. Absolutely. Patrick McDonough, I hope I'm saying that right. McDonald. My mum was an Elliot whose family emigrated to Nova Scotia in the 1800s. 7 brothers came together. That's amazing. So you are Elliot. I know lots of Elliots. Again, you can get Elliots here. You can get Elliots in England. You can probably get Elliots in Ireland. In fact, you do get Elliots in Ireland. A very famous Irish Elliot. T.S. Eliot. But, so it's just one of those things. And we've got Balquidder, Moor, Lodges. Hello, I love Balquidder. For anyone who's watching, Balquidder, Lodges have just joined, and Balquidder is where Rob Roy is buried. Just as a wee FYI. Let's see who else we've got. So I'm just going through Patrick's information. McDonald's side married into Black. So Black is another name which is incredibly difficult, because Black comes from sometimes it can come from a place. So a name, you're named after a place with Black. Sometimes it comes from a profession, a job. So like a blacksmith, same with the name Smith. Sometimes it comes from what you look like from your family side when they started to define names. So Black is a really, really, really painful one to research. But I know we've got one chap who comes in, Calvin. He's a Brown, and there was actually a Brown castle down, I think it was down the borders. So Browns, there were Browns in Scotland, and it was a Scottish name specifically, and they had their own castle as well. So, you know, there are some exceptions to the rules when you're looking at colours. So let's just see any other questions before I carry on. Okay, so yeah, so just going back to my own research and some things that I found that might prove useful to you. So when I was doing my great grandmother, Helen O'Brien, good Irish name, we had always been told that Helen was born when her parents arrived in Scotland. I did some research and I found, in actual fact, Helen's parents were both born in Scotland. So her, in fact I'm going to find her here. Where are you, Helen? Because I've got it in front of me. Let's see if I can find her. Helen. Here we go. Helen O'Brien. Now sadly Helen's, she died in 1945, but through ill health. But Helen's parents, come on Helen, where are you? Okay, so Helen's parents were, another good Irish name, Michael O'Brien and Jane Harvey. Now I did the research. Both Michael and Jane were also born in Scotland. And they met, Michael was living and working in Greenock, and Jane was, she was a house servant in Auchinleck in Ayrshire. But she was, that was what was on their marriage certificates. She was born in Strayton in Ayrshire, and her father was registered as a ploughman. So he was worked on the farms in Ayrshire. Michael O'Brien, though, was born in Logie, Stirlingshire. So he didn't come from Ireland at all. And his father was called Andrew O'Brien, and Andrew was the one who was born in Ireland, but Andrew married another Scottish girl called Margaret Cairns. look at all these names that I've got in my family and I didn't even know about it. So that's what I find totally fascinating, that I've got all these Scottish names in my lineage. Let me just see. We've got Amanda, you're in. No problem. McKinstry. McKinstry actually sounds Irish. I know we were saying about the Max and the Mix, but there you go. Sylvia McLachlan. Oh, yes. Sylvia, a little bittersweet. I was supposed to be staying at your castle. I would have just checked out of your castle. Myself and my family were due to stay over Easter at Castle Lachlan, which is McLachlan family. The Lachlan clan. And I had another McLachlan on tour, and we went up to the old Castle Lachlan, which you'll see on Loch Fyne. It's a really interesting looking ruin just by Otter Ferry, and you can go and see it. And Castle Lachlan is not too far. The new Castle Lachlan, which was rebuilt. The McLachlans, actually, their clan chief. You'll go to Culloden and you'll see the McLachlan. You'll see the destroyed. It was after Culloden, and the Campbells came down with their boats and they bombarded and they destroyed the castle from the water. So that's a wee sad story. And apparently, I didn't know this. This is from local folklore in the Argyll area. I'm lucky to know people who know stuff about that area and have managed to get some oral tradition. But apparently, up until about 100 years ago, you could still see the fine wallpaper inside the old ruined castle, and now it's totally gone. But anyway, so there you go. So I've been to and I was standing actually at the church, your church, the McLachlan church, just before Culloden. Your clan left from there and made their peace, whatever you want to call it, and then rode off. And then famously, I don't know, this is just part of the folklore, the chief's white horse after Culloden made its way back to its home, and they knew that all was lost. So that's part of the oral tradition. Hi Amy, nice to see you here. So yeah, that's a little bit of the McLachlans, and it was something that's quite relevant to me just now because I would have been at the castle. I would have been the queen of the McLachlan castle. Not quite. I think my mother would have been the queen of the McLachlan castle, but that's another story. Oh, it's your cousin Terry. Terry runs the castle. So Hugh just made a really good point, and I'm saying Hugh sorry because I can't quite make the Gaelic sound just yet. Practice. Any idea what century they started anglicising Scottish surnames on official documentation? For example, McConaughey to Mackenzie, or when they stopped using the correct naming of children, McHugh, sorry, I'm trying to say it right, or Nick Cave, son of Hugh, daughter of Hugh. So, yeah, it seems to happen pretty much at the tail end of the 19th century, when it's the kind of real end. But really, when Gaelic when English starts to take over the Gaelic in those particular regions is during the 18th century, when they start to document Scotland and they start to write it out and they start to kind of formalise the country. There's no other way to put it. They just started to make things more official and across the board. So that's when you start to see, in an official context, Gaelic stopping being used, but there were still some last bastions of hope within that. In fact, it was when I was doing the Bell information, that's what I was mentioning about the mistranslation. Those translations were mainly missed during the 19th century in Argyll, when they started to become anglicised. And it was just, you know, there's no real actual right answer when it comes to self-policing. A lot of this happened through self-policing and trying to make it right. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily mean like, let's just take McKeon, MacDonald, for example, or the Nick, as you mentioned quite well there. What people need to understand as well is that in the Scottish Gaelic, if you are a MacDonald or a McIntyre, whatever you are, Mac is a male, is son of. And in the Gaelic language, they also called their females the daughters, so they would be Nick, N-I-C. So you'll see that stops to be used, like I said, at the tail end of the 19th century in particular. But before that, really, when they started to demonise Gaelic, way back in the beginning, since the Act of Union, I could probably easily say, when they started to try to standardise the UK to what we have today. And they started building roads and maps and everything else. So to be something and to be wealthy and prosperous, you took upon this new identity, which was English, because that was what was considered successful, etc. So when you look at all these things, there's lots of different things that are happening at the same time. So it's really important to look at the full picture when you're looking at, it's not just one issue, it's a gradual thing. I mean, this went on right up until the 1950s in Scotland, even 1960s. I hope that helped you, Hugh. I hope it was something, because you can, if you go back to the records, like I was saying with the Bell name, I'm sorry, I'm not going to even attempt it. Or shall I? Let me just see. I'll see if I can pronounce the name here. Na Bilach, or Mac Gili, or Healy, or Mac Vol-aun. I'm going to have to get somebody else to do this for me. But that was the Macmillans. And then, yeah, I'm going to have to do a full episode on this. But if you go into this, you can actually see some of the names are there. And I suppose actually another interesting part here there would be when, you know, since the Kirk really has had such a hold on the affairs of Scotland, and that's really since 1707. So everything has to go through the Church of Scotland, and as you can imagine, that becomes a bit complicated, especially if things have been translated from one place to another. So that's probably where that also comes from. But I would have a look at this particular website. In fact, I'm just going to quickly post it in here for you, and then you can have a wee peek at that. Have a wee read. I think it will go some way to answer your question. Hi, Mummy Leanne in Sutton Academy. Hope you're all doing fine and you're all safe and well. Let me just go back to the comments. Okay, so now where was I? Yes, so when I was going back to obviously Michael O'Brien, I found out that Andrew was the Irish connection, but he then also married another Scottish lassie. and the other side were also Scottish. So that was quite interesting for me, because that was a family story that I managed to, I didn't want to debunk it, but it was debunked. Hi JP, my brother's just joined us. There was another one like that, and that is with the Ramseys, my hold on a minute, my great grandmother, and where she died. I had found on Ancestry, because I like I was saying before, like, use Ancestry with a pinch of salt, but it can be quite good for some clues, and you can kind of look at things and say, what's that all about? And somebody on Ancestry had found that my ancestor had died in Leith in Edinburgh. Now that didn't make any sense to me whatsoever, because Leith is on the other side of Scotland from where Greenock is. That's where she was living. She was in her, by this point, early 80s. And why would a lonely woman move all the way to Leith in Edinburgh, away from her family support? Her son was living around the corner from her, for example, with his wife, and her other son's wife was there as well, and she was actually taking care of her for some time. So it didn't make any sense that this lonely 80-year-old woman in 1920 whatever, because at that point we didn't know, would have travelled all the way to Leith to die. Didn't make any sense, because there's no connection to Leith for her that I could see anyway within her living memory. So I did a bit more digging. I called my local cemetery, and that's the picture that you see that I posted on Instagram and on Facebook of the Greenock Cemetery. I phoned the Greenock Cemetery and I said, look, I'd like to see if you could tell me if this person is in this lair. And they said, okay, let's have a look. What was her name? Can't find her. So I went by her husband, and I knew his death. I had his death record. He said, he's there, but he's there. There's 3 spots in the lair. There's him and his grandson. There was an infant boy who passed away, and they were together. And then my grandfather had another lair, and it wasn't there. And there was another lair next to theirs, which was his other son, and she wasn't there either. So we were searching all these blooming lairs, and I couldn't find. And I thought, this is odd. Like, did she turn like 82 and decide that she was going to run off with a sailor? Like, that's literally my thoughts. Or was she like murdered or something horrible? Or did she just disappear? But there was nothing in our family stories or history that would be that would have happened, because my grandfather was brought up by his grandfather, who was her son, and he never mentioned anything about his mother going missing and never being able to find her. So that was quite odd. And then we managed to find that she had gone down to Yorkshire to visit her daughter. One of her daughters had married a Yorkshireman, and she had moved down there, and her mother had gone down to stay with her, and she had died while she was there, and she's now buried there. But nobody knew that. Nobody in the family knew that. So that was something I had to do a lot of digging to find. So if you're in this, you're in it. You're in it for the long haul. But anyway, so I managed to solve that. And in fact, she did not die in Leith. So let's see, we've got Jenna. Hi Jenna, nice to see you. JP just asked, JP, that's what we call my brother, Jordan Peter Stevenson. JP, I would say start off with an Auchentoshan American oak. Alright, I said in a Scouse accent. I can't. That's how my brother talks. Anyway, yes, that helps. I have, let me just see what Ed's saying. I found a lot of my West Coast family used Gaelic nicknames but anglicised surnames. Again, an example, a great-great-grandfather was a shepherd and was known as Alinan Korach. Ali of the sheep, but was recorded Alexander Mackenzie. Yeah, and I think Best Scouse Accent Award. No, the Best Scouse Accent is actually my sister Amy and Jordan. I don't know if you'll remember this, because you were small. I'm the biggest sister, and Amy, our other sister, was putting something in the boot of the car, and she said, "There's a spoon in the boot." There you go. And I just remember thinking, what? Whenever, it's the most Scouse thing I've ever heard in my life. A spoon in the boot. Anyway, there you go. So, yes, and that's a good point that Hugh made as well. Like, so you might have, if you have any oral tradition in your family, people might be known as something else, or recorded as something else to what they were known as. So very basically, you might think that you're, let me just think. So my papa, my second husband, he was called Kenneth Mackay. He named his son Kenneth as well. But he, what was his name? Gosh, I've just forgotten his name now. Where's my mum? So blooming stepbrother. I forgot my step uncle's name because it's always Kenneth. Yeah, I'm off on one. But let's just, you might be John Senior, John Junior, but you might be called, I don't know, by your middle name. So you might be, so my middle name is Kirsty. So if my mum was called Katrina, then I would, and my name was also Katrina, my middle name's Kirsty, so then I would just be Kirsty. I hope that makes sense. That's a kind of more basic, rudimentary way of saying it. But as Hugh was saying, in a Gaelic sense, they were more descriptive, and actually they were much better with their oral tradition than we are. So they'll be able to pinpoint a certain person by what they did and what they looked like and what colour hair they had or whatever it is. Or even like a speech impediment. As I know, everybody knows that person because of a speech impediment, or everybody knows that person because of whatever, and that will just keep going down the line. So sorry guys, I inflicted my Scouse accent, Liverpool accent on you. Melinda McGuinness says, I was always told my family were Scots-Irish. They mostly lived in Northern Ireland but were from Scotland. Before that, Ancestry DNA seems to support that. Any ideas of the last name McGuinness, which would have been recorded as both McGuinness and McInnes? So McInnes, definitely. McGuinness, no, I've never heard of a McGuinness in Scotland, but McInnes, definitely. Innes is a good Scottish Gaelic name. So I would say Mac, son of Innes. Although that book I read the other day, Innes was a lassie, which I've never seen. Hi Helen, Skelmerly. Bain, it's a good name here as well. So I would say McInnes is what I'd look at. Look, okay, let's go back to the Mac and the Mick. There's no difference. Mick doesn't mean Irish and Mac doesn't mean Scottish. But we have a shared language. So Mac still means the same thing. So if you've got McGuinness, it doesn't mean it's from Scotland originally or from Ireland. It means that it could be from Scotland or Ireland. You just have to do your research as well. So that makes things a little bit more complicated. But there are names that are like MacLeod, MacDonald, although there were some McDonald's over in Ireland as well. So it gets very complicated. So have fun, guys. Yeah, Innes is a name. I had a Mr. Innes. Mr. Innes was my history teacher, guys, and he was my Mr. Innes was my history teacher and my deputy head teacher, and he was my history teacher when I was doing higher history, and he was an absolute gem of a man. Absolutely adored him, and sadly he's no longer with us. But yeah, so I always think of Innes, I always think of Mr. Innes. Anyway, that's another story. Good Scottish name. Let's see. And I think that's pretty much that. We've just gone off on Insta. There we go. So we've come to our hour. So there we go. I hope you've all enjoyed my wee chat tonight. My wee impromptu chat. As I said before, if you're needing any help with your ancestry, I do it. It's one of my hats, one of my jobs. So if you are looking for anyone to help you, I can do that myself. And I have a bit of the history that you might find useful as well. So there we have it. Thanks, Taylor, you too. And you're very welcome. Like I said, I'll be doing a session on the border reavers. So for all of you Ulster Scots, you might find that edition very useful and very personal to your own story. And we'll go over some of the main reaver clans, and because they're fascinating and they don't really get a lot of exposure. Everybody always thinks about the Highlands, but honestly the reavers were hard folk. They're called reavers. Reaver basically means a raider, so they used to raid and steal and have blood feuds and everything else that you would assume a Highland clan would do as well. So there you have it. So thank you. I'll see you again same time tomorrow night. And if you have any questions about anything I've discussed tonight, please do get in touch. And for Patty and Debs, still working on yours, and we'll finish up hopefully once everything's opened. I'll be visiting all the different archive sites. So there you go. So have a good night, and wish you all health, safety, peace, love, light, all the rest of it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed my African fire theme. Take care, guys. Bye.